Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my December wrap-up. Alright guys, so December was a mess. So I feel like I was sick for almost the entire first part of December. I got really sick with like a sinus infection right after Thanksgiving, and that kind of went away for like 2 days, and then I got the flu. And it was absolutely horrible, and then that resulted in a double ear infection, and I'm still having issues with one ear. So December was just, it was rough. I didn't get too many books read. I think I read around 16 or 17, which is still really good. It's just my average is normally around 21. So yeah, there was a big mix. I will say I read some of my absolute favorite reads of the year at the end of December. So I had already filmed like all of my top books of the year videos, which is a little bit of a bummer. So I'm so excited to talk about these books with you guys. Now, if you are unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the books I read in December. Alright guys, so like all my other wrap-ups, I am going to sort this by genre. However, I am going to save all of the holiday and Christmas romances for the very end of this video, just because they're kind of like niche romances. Most people don't read them throughout the year. So, we're going to start off with fantasy romance. I only read 2.5 fantasy romance this month, which is kind of upsetting. So, first up was a reread, and that is Zodiac Academy. This is Fated Throne, which is book 6 in the series. So, if you're not familiar with Zodiac Academy, it is a paranormal fantasy bully romance, and we are following these two girls, and on their 18th birthday, they find out that they are actually Fae royalty, but in order to claim their inheritance, they have to go to the Zodiac Academy. And when they get there, they find out that these celestial beings are already kind of ruling the school, and it's these 4 guys. And the first few books is definitely like bully paranormal romance, but then the rest just becomes an amazing fantasy romance series that I am obsessed with. So I will say, after rereading it, book 6 is still my least favorite in the series. I just feel like the pacing is so slow, and the emotional moments I didn't feel as connected to as I feel like I should have. It just like didn't elicit the same feelings as the other books in the series, and funny enough, this is the only book I've reread in the entire series. So I finished this, and I started Heartless Sky. I'm not finished yet. I'm almost finished. I have like 9 chapters left, and I'm definitely enjoying Heartless Sky more. I do want to read the 8th book in January. However, I don't know when the audiobook is going to be released. So I'm really hoping the audiobook is released in January, because I hear book 7 ends on a crazy cliffhanger. Either way, I am so happy to be back in Solaria with these characters that I absolutely love, and I just can't wait to see how the story ends. And next up, I read A Kraken Sacrifice, which is the second book in the Katee Robert monster series. The first one being, I think, A Deal with a Dragon, or The Dragon's Promise. Anyway, really like that one. I talk about it in my November wrap-up, but A Kraken Sacrifice, I'm not sure how I feel. I ended up rating this 3 stars. We are following Catalina. Similar to the first book, she makes a deal where she has to live with a monster for 7 years, and any child that comes from this union will have to stay in the demon world. So Catalina is a very strong character. She knows what she wants. She really just wants to do this deal, live for 7 years, and then she's free to be completely rich in the human world and just live her own life without having to rely on anybody. So she ends up being married off to the Kraken Thane. Now, Thane has recently lost his husband, the love of his life, and he is just pining after him. So he doesn't think he's going to fall in love with Catalina, and it's really just their relationship. So there are parts of the story I did enjoy. Catalina makes it known right away that she does not want to have any children, and I feel like it was really refreshing to see a childless relationship. I feel like a lot of romance books tend to end with the people coming together, and then the epilogue is them having a baby. So I did enjoy that aspect. The tentacles were interesting. There's a lot of tentacle play going on in this book. Not sure how I feel about it. Overall, I just wish their love story was a little bit more fleshed out. I feel like it kind of turned to insta-love, like they hated each other. He treated her terribly, and then they're in love. So I didn't love that part of the story. I just feel like we needed a little bit more. But overall, I think if you like monster romance, you probably will enjoy this. Personally, it just wasn't for me. Moving into dark romance, I read some amazing dark romance this month. The top one by far being Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. So this is somehow dark, but also has this beautiful, whimsical quality that I've never read in a mafia romance before. It was so unique and just so good. We are following Darby. At the beginning of the story, she is visiting Ireland for the first time. Her grandfather lives there, and he tells her the story of the Fae folk and the Lady of the Lake and all of this Irish folklore, and Darby decides she's going to go off on an adventure. So she goes to this lake where she stumbles upon a boy, and he's very dirty, he doesn't speak, he's almost feral, and Darby actually mistakes him for a fae. So they end up playing together all day, and then despite Darby's grandfather telling her to stay away from that boy, they end up playing together every single time Darby comes to visit. So we find out the boy's name is Kellen, and he has a really rough life, and he really just looks forward to seeing Darby every year. Unfortunately, one year, Darby is not able to come back to Ireland, and then multiple years pass, and when she is finally able to return, she is engaged to another man. So it is their story. It is just, it's so good. So good. Check trigger warnings. Like I said, it has that whimsical, like, fantasy elements. There is, like, magic involved in this book, but it also is a dark mafia romance, and there's some messed up stuff that happens. So do yourself a favor, check the trigger warnings, but I love this. Also, listen to the audiobook. If you are a fan of audiobooks, this book via audio is amazing. Both narrators do the Irish accent perfectly, and I loved it. I listened to this book in one sitting, so highly recommend. So good. And next up, I read a serial killer romance duology. I had this duology on my TBR for a while, but I was waiting for the audio to be released. It finally was, and I loved it. So we have There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark, and then the sequel is There Is No Devil. So I loved this duology. We are following Mara, and Mara is a struggling artist. She has had a terrible upbringing. Her mother was neglectful and narcissistic. Her stepfather was abusive, so she has just learned not to depend on anybody. So one day, unfortunately, she is abducted and attacked and left for dead. And through this abduction, she ends up meeting Cole. Now, Cole is a very, like, prestigious sculptor, and he is very intrigued by Mara because she was able to evade a serial killer. So it is their romance. We also find out that Cole happens to be a serial killer himself. And I really enjoyed this. So Cole comes off very, if you've seen Dexter, he reminded me a lot of Dexter. He's not really sure, like, what to do with his emotions. He's almost like a psychopath or a sociopath. And you never know what he's feeling towards Mara. And then you have Mara, who doesn't realize the danger she is in for most of this book. So I really enjoyed this. And then the second book was just as good. I can't really get into the plot of this because it's going to give away spoilers. But both books I rated 4 stars. If you like dark serial killer romance, you will love this duology. And moving into contemporary romance, I read this entire series. So, do I regret reading it? No, I don't. It's not like the Crossfire series. I did actually enjoy this for the most part. Around book 3, I started kind of being over the couple, and then by book 4, I hated it. So, I did enjoy a lot of it. So for those of you who don't know what the series is about, it is the After series, and it's by Anna Todd. We are following Tessa and Hardin. Tessa is this very, like, good girl. She's super modest. She just wants to do, like, the best for her family. She's had the same boyfriend for a really long time. The most they've ever done in the bedroom is, like, kiss and make out. And she's going to college. And when she gets to college, she's assigned a roommate. Her roommate is kind of like a partier, you can tell right away. And her roommate ends up introducing Tessa to Hardin. Hardin is this bad boy who is covered in tattoos, who is just absolutely terrible to Tessa upon meeting her, and it is their relationship. First of all, I did not realize this was Harry Styles fanfic. Makes a little bit of sense. However, I really enjoyed the first book. The first book is super toxic, but yet I was still rooting for Tessa and Hardin, like, in a relationship. But by the last book, I was just sick of both of them and their miscommunication and their very bad decision making. So overall, I liked book 1 and 2. I think I gave book 1 and 2 both 4 stars. Book 3 kind of started going down. I think it was like 2.5, and then by the last one, it was like 2. So I do recommend checking it out if you haven't yet. It was definitely an experience. I have a full spoiler-filled reading blog that's edited. I just never posted it. If you guys want to see it, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll post it as like an extra video. But yeah, it was a time. I'm happy I read it, but I'm also very happy it's over. And next up was another one of my top reads of the year, and that is For Lucy by Jewell E. And have your tissues ready. This book made me weep ugly tears. It was so emotional, and I feel like I was not prepared going into it. This is following Emmett and Tatum. So when the book starts, Emmett is at this bar, and he sees this very attractive girl walk in, and she walks right up to him and assumes that he is her blind date. So we find out the girl is named Tatum, and Emmett, instead of correcting her, just kind of goes along with it and pretends to be her blind date. They end up having an amazing date, and after Emmett convinces Tatum that he is not a complete creep, they end up dating, and they have this beautiful relationship, and you just see them so in love. They end up having a daughter named Lucy, and when Lucy is born, Tatum makes Emmett promise that Lucy comes first. Even over her, Lucy is their main focus. So then we jump into the future, and Tatum and Emmett are divorced, and not only that, Tatum is dating another man. Lucy is now, I think, like 15 or 16, and we're just watching these two people try to co-parent their teenage daughter, but also Emmett is watching Tatum slowly fall in love with someone that isn't him, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. We find out what caused this fracture in the relationship, and it is so sad. I read this book in one sitting. Like I said, hysterically weeping the entire time I was reading it. Check trigger warnings. There is a very upsetting event that does happen on page, so know that going into it. But oh my goodness, I love this book. So if you are looking for a super emotional read, definitely check out For Lucy. And next up I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. So every single romance booktuber that I follow loved this book. So I was super excited to read it. I was waiting for the audio to drop. It finally did. And I will say I went into this knowing that I hate cowboy romances, and it did meet my expectations. I thought it was actually really good. Not 5 stars, I think I rated it 4 stars, but still it was really enjoyable. So we are following Summer and Rhett. Rhett is this cowboy. He is about to retire, but he wants to win one more. I think it's called like a belt. And his family has never really approved of him being a bull rider, even though he's absolutely amazing at it and is pretty famous for it. So we are watching Rhett just kind of be grumpy. And then we have Summer, who is put in charge of watching Rhett and make sure that he doesn't do anything to like tarnish his image. And Rhett is, like I said, super grumpy about the fact that he has a babysitter. And then you have Summer, and you kind of find out a little bit about her past, her relationship with her stepmother and sister. And it was a little bit like more emotional than I was expecting. But overall, I did enjoy it. I am very excited for Heartless to come out via audio. I'm pretty sure that's the second book in the series, and it's single dad romance. And I love single dad romance. So I'm hoping, I didn't give this 5 stars, but I think I probably will end up giving Heartless 5 stars. So hopefully that is released soon. But yeah, if you like cowboy romances, I definitely recommend picking up Flawless. All right, moving in to Christmas romances. I'm going to do this by novella and then full-length books. So I only read 2 full-length Christmas romances. The first one being The Plight Before Christmas by Kate Stewart. My favorite Christmas romance to date. I love this. If you have read the Ravenhood series, then definitely check out The Plight Before Christmas because there are some nods to the Ravenhood series. I think it's in chapter 25. I flat out screamed when I realized what was happening. So, loved it. Anyway, The Plight Before Christmas is following this girl. She has just been passed over for a position at her job, and she's going to stay with her family over Christmas at this cabin. And when she gets there, she finds out that her brother has brought her ex-boyfriend, unbeknownst to him, to stay with them during this Christmas vacation. And it's pretty much finding out their history as well as them slowly rekindling the romance. I loved it. The humor in this book is perfect. I very rarely laugh out loud while I'm reading, and I found myself doing it so many times during this book. Also, the audiobook narrated by Joe Arden. Joe Arden can do no wrong when it comes to audiobooks, so highly recommend. I love this. Like I said, one of my absolute favorite Christmas romances. And next up I read There's Something About Mary, which is the second book in the Mistletoe series by Codi Hall. So the first book being Nick and Noelle's Christmas Playlist. I will say I like that one a little bit more than There's Something About Mary, but it was still enjoyable. So we are following Mary, and she wants to eventually take over her father's Christmas tree farm business once he retires. Unfortunately, her father has just hired Clark, who is a single dad, and her father is teaching Clark kind of the ropes of the Christmas tree farm, and it seems like he's planning on Clark taking over. So Mary, right away, hates Clark, even though she realizes that he is super attractive and an amazing father. And it is their romance, And I enjoyed this. I think it was your typical rom-com romance. It wasn't super standout. Like, I don't remember a lot of the details. I just remember loving that it was single dad trope. And that was really it. So if you're looking for just a fun, lighthearted Christmas romance, I would definitely check out There's Something About Mary. All right, and next up are all spicy Christmas romances. So I actually have a reading blog where I read these books. I will leave that blog in the cards and in the description in case you want my actual reaction while reading. First up, we have Window Shopping by Tessa Baily, and I will say this is my favorite Tessa Baily book. It has been a while since I've read a Tessa Baily book and really enjoyed it. This was so much fun. So we are following Stella. Stella has recently been released from prison. In the start of the story, she is in New York City and she's staring up at this department store window display, and then Aiden ends up walking up next to her. Aiden is this really tall, kind of like dorky looking guy. He likes to wear bow ties. And he asked Stella if she'd be interested in designing the window display because he is the CEO of like this department store. So she ends up getting the job and it's their romance. I loved it. I loved it so much. So although Aiden is like kind of like a dork, he is not that in the bedroom. And it is so fun to see him like completely shift. And I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun, short Christmas read. I will say parts could be cringy to some people. I just love these characters, so I was totally okay with it. But yeah, if you're looking for a spicy Christmas novella, definitely check out Window Shopping. And next up I read the Holiday Brothers novellas by Willa and Nash. So Naughty, the Nice, and the Nanny, and then Three Bells, Two Bows, One Brother's Best Friend, and A Partridge in a Pregnancy. So I will say, I pretty much liked them in the order I read them. So my favorite by far was The Naughty, the Nice, and the Nanny. That is a single dad romance, and it was so good. The second one, Three Bells, Two Bows, One Brother's Best Friend, is obviously brother's best friend romance, and then A Partridge and a Pregnancy is an unplanned pregnancy. So these were all super short. You can easily read them. I think I read all of the books just on my commute to work. I listened to them via audio. They were free at the time I listened to them, but highly recommend. I love Willa Nash. That's Devney Perry's pen name. One of my favorite authors. So if you're looking for a spicy holiday novella, definitely check out The Holiday Brothers. And last up I read Gifting Me to His Best Friend by Katee Robert. So I actually talked about this book in the spiciest books I ever read in 2022. This book was spicy, but I actually really enjoyed it. So we are following this husband and wife, and they're super experimental in the bedroom, and it is Christmas. They end up going on vacation with the husband's best friend. They end up all getting stowed in together, and the husband decides that he is going to gift his wife to his best friend. So they end up having like a menage a trois type situation. And really, it's just them deciding if they want to keep this up after they leave this cabin or if this is just going to be like a weekend thing. And it was really good. So if you want a super, super, super spicy holiday romance, definitely check out Gifting Me to His Best Friend. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Those were all the books I read in December. Please let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of the book I mentioned, and let me know what was your favorite read of December. I said this already, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!